Do you ever feel like you're just skimming the surface of all the information that you capture? We live in a pull to refresh world, right? We're constantly bombarded with fresh content. But what if we could process it more meaningfully? Ruth Slinchenska is the last living student of Sergei Rachmaninoff, one of the greatest pianists of the 20th century. One day she's arriving for a lesson with Rachmaninoff, and she's standing outside his door and hears the previous student practicing painfully slow. What an inferior player, she thought. So she knocks on the door, and Rachmaninoff opens the door. And it was just him. He was alone. There was no student there. It was actually Rachmaninoff himself who had been practicing so slowly. And it got me thinking Rachmaninoff was onto something. He realized that practicing slowly helped him avoid mistakes and improve awareness of technique. It helped him to pay attention to all the aspects of a musical piece, to enhance his reflexes and improve his memory, and it helped him to learn and play more complex pieces and to develop a greater understanding of the music. And as I began to process this, I realized we see an increased awareness, an increased understanding, increased retention, and increased learning, all are a result of practicing slowly. And that's when I realized if it's true in music, it's true in our note-taking and in our learning, right? And I came to this realization that you can create a rich collection of insights when you practice living slowly. In other words, when you practice living slowly, you have increased awareness, increased understanding, increased retention, and increased learning. Now, you may be asking, how do you live slowly? Well, that's a great question. I want to pause just for a moment here and give you a free gift for hanging out with me today. This is a short PDF guide on how to get insights from the nonfiction books that you read and that you love into your PKM system. By the end of this guide, you'll have a simple system for highlighting your books, a mindful approach for adding content to your PKM system or PKM Notes app, a process for creating building blocks of knowledge for the future, and then a simple tip for making more connections between your notes. The link to the free guide is in the description below. I have 4 practical ways that you can live slowly. Let's dive in. Number 1 is read fewer books. I don't need to say a lot. I'm actually going to let Mr. Charles Spurgeon speak into this because I wouldn't be able to say it better than him. He says, master those books that you have. Read them thoroughly. Bathe in them until they saturate you. Read and reread them. Digest them. Let them go into your very self. Peruse a good book several times and make notes and analysis of it. A student will find that his mental constitution is more affected by 1 book thoroughly mastered than by 20 books he has merely skimmed. Little learning and much pride comes from hasty reading. Some men are disabled from thinking by their putting meditation away for the sake of much reading. And reading, let your motto be much, not many. Someday, I hope there's a book written about how to approach reading books called Much, Not Many. That would be cool. All right, number 2, take long showers. Showers are one of my thinking pods, right? You can get a waterproof whiteboard if you want, or I just bring my phone in the shower with me, not to listen to anything or anything like that, but I have a towel handy to dry my hands, and then if I need to take a note, I don't want to forget about it, so I will grab my phone and take a note and continue. I find that my mind has been doing lots of thinking during the night on concepts and ideas that I wrote down the previous day, right? And then as I'm in the shower, and really what's happening is I'm being still, right? There's not a lot going on. There's no noise coming at me. I'm not being bombarded with noise. I'm not reading a book. It's just there's stillness, right? And in that stillness, I find I actually have some new thoughts, or I have a different perspective. Or maybe there's something I thought of that I wasn't thinking of before, the day before, when I had this idea or this concept that I've been brewing on and steeping my thoughts on. I find that clarity comes when I pause and when I am still. I'll leave it at that. All right, number 3. You've heard me say this before probably if you've watched any of my videos, but take long walks. Walking is probably the single most important habit of my life. It's a gold mine for ideas and thoughts. And when I walk, I'm not listening to podcasts. It's tempting, right? It's tempting to want to listen to something, to have some noise as you are walking, as you're doing something like that. But I resist the temptation and I'm not listening to anything, because it's not a time for input. It's a time to process the input that I've already gathered from earlier that day or yesterday or for the week. I just need to process, and I can't process if I'm continually taking in information. And finally, review more than you capture. Instead of scrolling on social media, scroll through your notes, right? Or you can pick a random note, any note. If you use a daily note, you can go back to today's note from last year, if you have some notes from that last year, or last month, the same day of last month. Go to that note and see what you wrote down. See what the thoughts were, right? It may be kind of cool to see if there's a recurring theme whenever you revisit notes. But you could pick a random note too and follow the trail of connections through your bi-directional linking. And then along the way, make more connections. Who knows? Maybe the note that you you come across, is what you've been looking for, and may provide clarity on the new thought or new idea that you've been chewing on. And if you're not sure what bidirectional linking is, I encourage you to check out the whole video that I did on it. I'll put it in the description for you to check it out. Okay, so to recap, how do we practice living slowly? There are multiple ways, but these are ways that have worked for me, right? Read fewer books, take long showers, take long walks, and review more than you capture. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any ways of how you practice living slowly that I haven't mentioned here, or maybe you have some thoughts on any of these, feel free to comment below. I'd love to chat and have a conversation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.